This podcast is sponsored by Cocatel Collective, a strategic sales and marketing firm representing a highly curated portfolio of emerging beverage brands from non-alcoholic wine and spirits all over the world, such as Apolog Liquors, Kuro Distillery, Madre Mezcal, Norden Aquavie, Reinhold Distillery, Something and Nothing, and West 32 Soju. Welcome to this episode of End Process Podcasts. We are sitting here with Carrie May, a nurse practitioner in the emergency department for over 20 years, a certified recovery coach, and the founder of two nonprofits. The first, which is Brave, an adventure and boutique style coaching practice, and also the founder of Chicago AF, which is a sober nonprofit community that fosters alcohol-free connections and creates a unique sober events and experiences in the city. Welcome to the show, Carrie May.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We'll start off simple. How was your day so far? Besides the little bit of
No, it was good.
Journey here.
Thank you for helping me in. It was really good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And you said you mentioned this to me earlier before the show started, but you're coming in from the west suburbs of Chicago.
From Arlington Heights.
And how long have you been there?
We have been there for about over 10 years at least.
Okay.
We've essentially been in the northwest suburbs ever since school. I met my husband at U of I, and so we've been in the northwest suburbs ever since. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh,
Some of us are familiar with the area. Yeah, I've spent some time there. Really cool.
I'm gonna jump back to when was the moment you decided to practice sobriety? We're gonna dive right in.
Oh, please. It was in 2016, April of 2016. I needed to get sober. So I was somebody that had to get sober, not a lifestyle change. I needed to get sober. So I was addicted to alcohol at that point. And so I did.
Yeah,
I did.
amazing.
Yeah, thank you.
Was there a specific moment that?
Yeah, there were a lot of moments leading up to it. So It was my whole adult life. I had drank and like what people may want to call it normally or whatever, but
Right.
I didn't really have an issue with my drinking until about 2 to 3 years before I stopped. And it was interesting. I always kind of like try to think back, like what was the reason? Like why did my drinking like increase? And we initially lived in Palatine after U of I, and we had one child at the time. I have 2 kids, and we moved one town over, just Arlington Heights, and I remember my anxiety kind of picking up, and it was kind of interesting. It kind of felt like I was back in high school or something I had never felt before. Like kind of, it sounds silly, but wanting to fit in with like the other parents and like the new community and things like that. And so my anxiety increased, and so did my drinking. And then just kind of escalated. And then it was really cool because my daughter, who was 11 at the time, was like, you can get out or we're going to get out.
Yeah.
And it kind of like very serious, you know? And so I knew I really needed some help. And my husband like really was, you need some help. And so I did check myself into rehab. And it was really, you know, one of those like gut decisions. Like my mom had to fly across country and take care of my kids. And I didn't want anybody to know about it, especially being a nurse practitioner, which is something I'm really glad that you mentioned that I am, because I do feel like there's so much addiction it doesn't discriminate, period, but just being in healthcare, there's not a whole lot of professionals that talk about it because there's such stigma. You know, I was grateful it didn't have anything to do with my license, but, you know, so I'm just grateful to like be able to be at a point to like recover out loud and help others recover out loud as well.
Yeah.
So I had to get sober, and I did.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I'm just trying to like, you know, I'm listening to your story and just kind of putting myself there, and like the idea of that most people I don't think recognize, but like even just like when you were talking about keeping up with the Joneses, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
you go from like living in a city, or I assume,
Yeah.
and then when you're out in the suburbs, it's kind of like this, like it's a smaller community.
Yep.
It's like everyone knows what's going on. Everyone knows each other's business.
Exactly.
Right. And I think like it kind of like, I'm sure Anjoleen can like connect with that, you know, coming from Guam. It's like when you're like, everyone's such a tight knit community.
Yes.
I can see, I mean, I just like, again, not something I connect with, but I can understand that like kind of pressure of, you know, oh, like, you know, this person's doing this or this person, you know, and it's just like, that's got to have this crazy anxiety, and you can't like get away from that because that's home.
Right.
So there's a kind of like that was like really interesting for me to hear that. I'm just like, oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a different type of pressure that I
Yeah.
don't have to feel here in the city. Cause I just feel like we're all like secretly living amongst each
Yeah,
other,
yeah.
you know?
But it is true. It's like even though I only moved 7 minutes, I was completely moving communities, and I didn't really realize I had anxiety at that time. So I didn't totally know what was going on, but I did. So
Yeah.
Was this like a drinking at home thing, or was it maybe like the community of other mothers were having like?
mine was really more at home.
Yeah.
I drank a lot when I got home from work, like after like long like shifts, and then just like having a couple glasses of wine to relax, and
Yeah.
then the kind of the mommy wine culture that's like
Yeah.
that everybody talks about now.
Yeah.
I feel like I was a little bit before that. Not that I paved that, but
Yeah.
like
Right.
yes, we definitely drank wine whenever we were getting together. But mine truly, and I'm grateful I didn't have trauma because, you know, when I first came into recovery, I didn't really feel like my story was important, to be honest, because I didn't have like this crazy earth shattering story. Great, you know, thankfully I didn't have a DUI. I didn't miss a day of work. I had kept up with, I was a mom, you know, this and that. But like I was drinking every single day, and it was primarily at home, and it was like completely hiding it at the end.
Yeah.
And I feel that usually people have to get to that point where there's a rock bottom or something really traumatic has to happen for them to wake up and be like, man, I really have to change what I'm doing. Is there like, for somebody who's maybe hasn't reached that point, are there like questions that you would give them as advice of like what to ask themselves in order to make better decisions?
For sure. That's a really good question. I just feel like if anyone is questioning their drinking, it's probably a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
And, you know, like we're learning so much now that no amount of alcohol is safe. We know that, like the science is showing us that. And so, and I'm really grateful since I got sober that now we can have conversations exactly like this, but even just like conversations out loud with our friends about drinking, you know, because my friends were probably pretty surprised.
Yeah.
I mean, they were. I mean, I had to tell people that like, I'm not going to be like picking up soccer practice because I'm in rehab, you know? And so I had to let a couple people know that because I had to remove myself from the substance.
Yeah.
It's the best decision I ever made. It was the hardest. I was really concerned professionally because I was really afraid of like what people would think of me. That was a huge part of my beginning. I very much struggled with that. And so I always felt like once I could have some more confidence in sobriety, that I wanted to help other people have more confidence, like hugely.
I love that.
It was hard, and it was really hard in the beginning.
Yeah, I commend you. I feel like, you know, not knowing that story, and I think it's like, I think most people would just assume when you hear of such an impactful, positive change in someone's life that it usually follows some incredibly traumatic experience. And so, I mean, even more power to you. Like the fact that like you just recognize it, and there wasn't this monumental moment that was like hit you in the face, and you're like, this is cause for change immediately. That seems even harder, you know, for me to imagine people to do.
Yeah.
So that's amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Also me asking you like, what is the particular question, and you saying if you have to question it already, I'm like,
Right.
Yeah.
With being a nurse practitioner, is there anything that you're willing to share that you've seen in your line of work related to alcoholism that is like maybe a little alarming or that can give people another perspective on the space?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that too. And that's kind of where I want my work to move more into. Like, you know, we'll talk about Chicago AF and everything, but I really want to move into more the medical space because I really feel, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but I really feel that healthcare providers need so much more education about how we can help patients that are in the hospital for X, Y, and Z, but they also are in there, it's alcohol related or something else is going on, and how we can provide them with resources while we have them. You know, they're kind of in the hospital for that time, and so that we can help them. But it's so interwoven in health on every level, on all the problems. So
yeah.
there's still a lot of stigma. There's so much stigma with medical providers, with taking care of patients that have alcohol, like substance abuse issues.
Can you explain that?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, it's kind of like it's their fault. That is,
oh,
and there is a derogatory from what I have experienced. There's still such a derogatory tone of caring for that patient,
Right.
from
Yeah.
my perspective only, that I really want to see, because it's hard, when you're doing a grueling job. Like I'm a nurse, I've been in ER is primarily where I've been a nurse practitioner, but I also am trained as a hospitalist as well, so to care for patients like that are inpatient as well, and so there's this lack of empathy and compassion, and I get it because you get burnt down with caring for patients and
Right.
that aren't ready to get help. But it's still, I'm hoping that we see a change in education with the healthcare providers.
yeah. I mean, as soon as you mentioned that, even the first thing that comes to my mind is that even the terminology surrounding it is like drug and alcohol abuse.
Yes.
And even that makes it feel like it's only one-sided,
Yes.
right? Like
Yes.
it's that person's fault.
Yes.
It's the abuse of this
Yes.
instead of, a real challenge, a struggle, right?
Yeah.
And pain that this
Right.
person is dealing with.
It's almost like it's like an answer. So say you go to the emergency room because you got into a car accident and then they're trying to figure out what happened. And then I feel like they could hear, oh, the person was drunk, and they're like, oh, that's it.
Exactly.
And then that's like,
Yes, yes.
that's
Yeah.
all, it just ends there as opposed to all of the other reasons before that
Yeah.
Yeah.
of how they came to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like, you go kind of diving into this, was Chicago AF, was that like the first big step outside of your own personal growth from this that you wanted to make a change?
So, no. So it was interesting when I was in rehab, they bring AA in. And so I didn't really want to go to AA. But the moment I got out, I didn't know a single person in sobriety. And it was cute because I was like, I wouldn't talk in rehab. I was quite obstinate. And I mean, I talked when I had to, but I must have been planning it because the very next day I got out of rehab, I went to AA, 6:30 in the morning, somehow got myself through the door. And I credit AA so much to like my foundation, 100%, but I wasn't getting what I needed to have to thrive in sobriety. It was just, I wanted to meet younger people. I wanted to meet people that, just diverse people, just all ages, moms. It was very important for me. There was no women in my AA group. And so I tried a couple of things, like a couple of meetups and this and that didn't take off, but I kept trying because I just felt like for me, this was a lifetime decision. This was not like I'm dabbling. This was a lifetime decision. And so, I was one of those people that thought like I would never have fun again. And that was not an option either.
Right.
So I like to laugh. I love to laugh and have fun.
I love that.
And so Chicago AF finally came out. So I always had this burning desire. And then during the pandemic and the creation of Zoom, it initially started, I volunteered to lead like the Chicago chapter of the Luckiest Club.
Yeah.
And then we diverged off of that because it was really important to me that everybody could be welcome to it. You don't have to pay, like everyone's welcome for some more support and just to have things to do that don't involve alcohol.
What's the Luckiest Club?
It is an online virtual support community that's really great for anyone seeking support, like internationally, that can't get to in-person meetings. And, yeah, it's really good. It's great.
Is this, so what are the range of outlets that people can go if they feel that they need some support? So is AA the 12-week program? Is that the same thing?
So the AA is like based in like the 12 steps. And so AA is
12 steps.
Yeah. And so that is like for everybody, and you can find AA everywhere. And now since the pandemic as well, there's meetings 24/7 in every country, anytime you need it. And so AA is always there. But over the past few years, like we have just seen the recovery space open up for everybody, like just all sorts of groups and like everybody feeling home. And I still personally, as like somebody in sobriety and then now being a certified recovery coach as well, in person is where it's at. So if you can get yourself through the door, push yourself through the door.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's so many outlets now. It's really amazing.
What are some things that, by the way, In 11 days, I am 1 year no booze.
Oh, congratulations.
So
Yeah, it's
very
amazing.
crazy.
That's so cool.
So I feel like it's perfect timing to come chat with you because kind of the goal was a year, and now I'm like, I don't know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know where it's gonna take me. But my question is, what are some things that people can expect when they stop drinking? Because one of the biggest things for me was I am not socially comfortable.
Oh, big time.
Like
Big time.
It was crazy to the point where when I was drinking, I would drink, and if I was nervous around somebody, maybe I was meeting somebody new, I would like drink more because I'm like funnier
For
or like
sure.
more cool. And then when I stopped drinking, I was like, I'm scared to talk to people.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what to talk about.
Yeah.
What are some other things that maybe somebody can feel comfort in knowing that it's probably going to happen to them
Yeah.
when they choose to stop drinking?
So that is a huge one. It's just like the discomfort because everybody, at least I pre-gamed before I like hung out with people. Like,
Yeah.
just like 1 or 2 drinks or like, but yeah, I stress a lot to people that it just takes practice with socializing because it's so awkward. Like it's just everybody's awkward. And so that's like the coolest thing is like hang out with other sober people because they're awkward too until you get the hang of it and then it doesn't become awkward. But it's like you all of a sudden have this huge amount of space that you need to fill with something. And so it's really common for people to be bored at the beginning. It's super common for people to feel exhausted, like their body is like kind of recouping and you don't really understand it, but there's like this exhaustion level and people kind of put themselves down because they don't feel like doing the things, but your body is still all recalibrating. But the socialization aspect is huge. And like, that's what I love watching, like just with Chicago F, like we've had 3 years. I remember one of our first events was on Lake Michigan. It was the architecture tour and on the river.
that.
Yeah.
And they're like,
So-
they're pushing it hard too on that boat.
Yeah. So, but no, I know, right?
Yeah.
But like one girl showed up with 2 different shoes on, like so nervous.
Oh
One
my
like
Oh.
one girl brought like one girl brought her boyfriend and her son with her, which is totally cool, but had her back to us the entire time because she was so afraid to talk, like literally, and these people are thriving now. Like these people are like killing it. But you remember like those those first meetups, and
Yeah.
Which is why I love the fact that I think I heard this on Sun and Moon.
Yeah,
podcast.
I love her. We just went to Crested Butte together.
Yeah,
Mary Tilson.
Yeah, her podcast is great, and you mentioned something about that's why you like to do activities with the events. So maybe if somebody's planning to do something, have it not just be around socializing and maybe throwing in like a game or activity or something in there.
Yeah, and like it sounds cheesy, right? But when you're newly sober, or even you need to have something to like help with, or like like just something to do. That's exactly right. Something to keep you a little busy.
Yeah, I love that. And I love the hiking aspect especially. I mean, it's just something that I used to really love doing myself. And so I love like the idea of like just completely removing yourself.
Yeah.
You're right. And it's you're not just literally physically removing them from like a city or, wherever they're from, but you really get to like put all of your focus and energy into something that's, another physical challenge of mind and body as well. And then you overcome that together as a group, and then you get to enjoy this beautiful, scenery and be, so connected with everybody and nature. And so really love that. That's one of the activities that you guys are focusing on. So
can you explain more about Brave?
Yeah, I'd love to. So it's interesting. So that again started in the pandemic. I actually got like furloughed from the ER. So that's why I had extra time on my hand because nobody was going to the hospital, not even the ERs. And so that's when I decided that I wanted to be a certified recovery coach because at that point I had sponsored and mentored a lot of people and just kind of wanted to take it up a notch and just get some more professional training. And I took this trip with this girl that I had just met in sobriety, and she was, I think she's 20 years younger than me. And she was like, hey, do you want to go to Sedona? And I said, sure. And, she was kind of like, are you serious? And I said, why not? And so we did. And I had just met her. And so I was a little nervous too. But the way that you can walk and talk with someone and just like completely tell your whole life stories, it just that's where I was like, I have to recreate this for women. Like, there's something with hiking, and I'm not like some avid hiker either.
Right.
And I'm not going to stay in a tent. I would have a while ago, but I like to like stay. I'm not going to glamp either. Like,
Yeah.
I like to like, when I plan my brave adventures.
There's a Marriott Bonvoy somewhere.
Oh, yeah, there's going to be like a really nice Airbnb. We're going to hike, and then we're going to have like, we're going to celebrate, you know.
Right.
But that was it. I was like, there's something about nature, getting people off their phones. And like you said, the challenge in doing something together. It's cute because my husband, like, he always wanted to go to these national parks.
Yeah.
And I mean, I feel bad saying this, but I was like, who wants to go to a national park? You know? And so now I'm doing all this without him, but he plans the hikes for us. So we'll get, because I don't know where I'm going.
Yeah.
I just pick these places. And so
Yeah.
he'll pick the hikes, and it's just really,
I
it's
love
just
that.
cool. Yeah.
And from what I've heard, you've done some pretty awesome national parks, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
Zion has been on the top of my list. I
You
never
gotta
got to
go.
do.
You gotta go.
You know, you did Yosemite.
Yeah.
The Valley is just such a special. I tell everybody, I don't care if you're into nature, hiking, or whatever.
Seriously.
You just need to go and see it.
Yeah, and don't miss the sequoias.
Right.
Because that was amazing.
The forest is, I got to see it in October or something like that, late September.
Yeah.
So we're like leaving Yosemite through Sequoia.
Yeah.
And I swear to God, it was like, it's like a painting. Like
Yeah.
you couldn't even, like, it was just incredibly beautiful.
Yeah. And it's like
Seeing the-
otherworldly,
Yeah.
I feel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And the fun thing about that is when you're hiking and you're talking, it's also okay to just not talk
Big time.
when you're hiking because
you're just catching
everything's
your
so
breath.
beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But everything's so
that's-
beautiful that you're just like, I feel like it's one of those moments where if I'm like with a friend that we can be quiet and it's not weird.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because you're just like,
Yeah, because there's
listening
yeah,
to
you're
nature.
just it's nice. It's a comfortable silence.
Yeah.
Has there been a favorite moment between the two or both of Chicago AF and Brave?
They're
Like an
so
event or
they're
moment?
so different. Well, let's see. The No Booze cruise that we did last year, we repeated it this year, but that was like my first event where I really missed the party vibe. I always
Yeah.
tell people that. I'm straight up honest. Like, I miss that elusive party, like full out vibe. And on that boat, we had it, you know, and it was
Yes.
sold out. Everybody, the music's pumping. We're on Lake Michigan,
Yeah.
jets flying overhead, and I felt like this is it. This is what I've been wanting to recreate in sobriety. So that was like the moment for Chicago AF. And Brave is just, I can't believe anybody shows up at these retreats not knowing people. I think that is the bravest thing I've ever or that
love
they've
that.
ever done. But just the camaraderie that happens
Yeah.
through the retreats of just spending 3 days and like truly putting yourself out there.
Right.
Then what happens afterwards is like magic too, because now you have shared this intimate experience, this like small, cozy, like I keep it like 10 to 12 women typically. And then now you have friends. Now you have
Right.
like real friends in sobriety that like you can reach out to, and just watching those relationships develop has been really cool.
What does that look like for the Brave, like a retreat?
So typically I like to start with a party. So, yep.
Love that.
And so they typically start at like 4 p.m. and it's a 3-day weekend. And I like to do a private chef. And so it just starts with like a meet and greet party, and we have a private chef, and then we do 2 really big days of hiking. And so, like, we get up early. So, like, we hit the ground, or we try to get up early. Like, we try to, it's usually me that's dragging.
I love that.
But we pack backpack lunches, which are really fun, and like these little knapsacks. And everybody, I put out a huge spread. Everybody packs their own lunch, and that's fun. Like, that's like camaraderie of like doing that together. And then the afternoons are either like going into town, like we went into Crested Butte this past weekend, and we did some paddle boarding in a lake, and it's just like just to be out in nature. So there's been some really phenomenal sunsets. We got to go off grid in Zion. We were
that.
right outside the park, and this was awesome because the chef literally sent me the coordinates of where to meet him. So I had no idea.
Wow.
It was like, see you at 6 with like the latitude and longitude.
Wow.
I'm not kidding. And so that was really fun because I have all these women in my car. I'm like driving through this like pasture with like animals.
Yeah.
And people are like, where are we going? You know, so people are a little bit stressed out about this. And I was like, you're fine.
Yeah.
And we get there. Yeah, I don't know where we're going, but just trust me. We're all good. And we get there, and it's just like stunning.
Yeah.
Like table set, like white linen.
I love that.
And just us.
Yeah.
So it was, and that's always been my thing coming in to celebrate sobriety, to figure out what it is that like lights you up and like keep going and like let that keep lighting you up because it's hard otherwise, like, you know, so.
Yeah. It's gotta be tough. I feel like, you know, there's these societal norms, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel like it's one of those things that isn't, I feel like it's talked about, but it's not emphasized enough on. And I guess it's kind of like most people probably find themselves, you know, not hitting it right away, but like it's just a progressively downward spiral.
Totally.
And to kind of get to a point where you're like self-aware and you're like, this is becoming an issue. The amount of like loneliness someone must feel in that situation, right? And I feel like even on their way down or on their way up, it's still like a very internal, you know, there's a lot of like, I'm on my own and I'm the only one that can fix this.
Yes.
So I feel like seeing and hearing about these events and these meetings that you're creating, you know, these are probably so important. I mean, these are so important for people because it's giving them comfort and peace in knowing I'm not alone.
Right.
That there's others out there like me that are facing this challenge head on, and I can, you know, really talk to people about this.
Yes.
But I think the unfortunate reality is that, you know, it's the other way is winning right now, and we have to change the dialogue on what that means. And I can tell you as a restaurant operator,
Yeah.
where we are like, you know, we sell alcohol.
Right.
And I can tell you there's been positive change even just in business when I'm seeing this. I'm seeing the, you know, we made it a point here at this restaurant because, you know, one, I think that just generally speaking, most like East Asians don't really bode well with alcohol in general. And so the non-alcoholic options was always kind of an important mission of ours to like not
That's
just like
great.
have some juice with soda and simple syrup shaken for you and be like, this is the best I can do. And more or less emphasizing that we're like, hey, if you don't want to drink, like we've got incredible options for you. And, you know, with Anjoleen celebrating, you know, her 1 year of sobriety, I've had a lot of my firsts too, because I just like tagging along with her. I had my first wedding where I didn't drink.
Oh yeah.
And I was like,
how was that?
We didn't know anyone.
We didn't know anyone there. Like even to make it even more interesting. But you know, we had a great time. We
And we didn't know anybody, and I had a coworker that was there.
Oh, and she was
lit.
She was just hammered
I'm
drunk.
sure.
It was
So
like
drunk.
reassurance. You're like, oh,
You're
okay,
like,
this is
I know.
You're like, oh, that's how I look.
I know, right?
But we had our
I know.
Just
we,
fine.
I know.
But
we had our first like Michelin star like multi-course dinner at a restaurant called Kasama, where they celebrate like they're non-alcoholics and they have a non-alcoholic cocktail pairing for the entirety of the menu.
I'm
And that
so
was
glad you
really
said that.
cool to experience too. So I feel like for what it's worth, I think that there has been a big positive change, especially with the youth these days. I'm hearing it from a lot of like my sales reps.
Yep.
They're like, yeah, drinking is down, you know, like kids don't want to drink anymore. It's not cool to drink as much, you know. They're probably just smoking pot or something, you know, like it's just going the other way. But
It is
in any case,
the other way.
I mean, for what it's worth, it's like, I don't know, I'm seeing that, and I think it's great to see, you know.
That's so great from like a restaurant perspective and business perspective to be seeing that. And I see that with Chicago AF because I love that we have like such diverse ages. And what I'm seeing is that like so many younger people are choosing to not drink, like, you know, being more mindful and just, you know, wanting a better quality of life or wanting to be healthy or fitter, you know, mentally, you know, take care of their mental health and not hitting that rock bottom. And it's great. I can't actually, I'm floored by it, to be honest. Like I love the younger generation that is like, they really are, they're changing.
Yeah.
They're changing a culture. I mean, we're like beating it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Carrie, I actually, can you hear me? Carrie, I actually had a question also because I I mean, I have heard a number of theories like post-COVID, people are trying to lower alcohol also, and whether it's low ABV or complete like alcohol-free. Have you done any partnerships? Just because it seems like there are so many alcohol-free spirits and like shops for the spirits even.
Yeah.
Have you been able to like partner with anyone locally or in general?
So that's a great question. Thank you. We've had a lot of great collaboration from the non-alcoholic vendors. It's really important to me though, as the founder, that it's not about the non-alcoholic drinks though. To me, it's like more about the community and creating the space, to have an idea to get together, like have a reason to get together that doesn't have alcohol. But definitely we haven't partnered like specifically with one, but we have had like the best experience with the non-alcoholic vendors of helping with our events. And we just did Oktoberfest with Lincoln Park Zoo.
I love that.
950 people came out on a Sunday evening to a non-alcoholic event.
That is so cool.
It is so cool. And the thing is like, I'm so grateful for, Lincoln Park Zoo came to me.
Oh my God.
Yep.
That
And
is
when
so
we did
cool.
Morton, we did an event with Morton Arboretum as well. And that was a 500-person event. And Morton came to us.
That's so cool.
So we're seeing it from like, the community wants it. And, and these are like sold out events, And so like the potential is amazing. And just my husband, because I was in the mountains, my husband was helping at Oktoberfest, and just, he stopped drinking when I did to support me, which is super nice. I know, super nice. I'm super lucky. But he was just relaying how all these different people were coming up to him and just saying that they were so grateful to have, like, they can't believe that there's a place to come out and that there's no alcohol at all, and just to, and they're like, we're a little nervous. And he's like, it's okay. My wife's always nervous. Don't worry about it. She's always nervous. Go for it.
I love it. Can you tell us a little bit more about Oktoberfest? Like what goes on the event?
Yeah. So it was really cool. So it was at the zoo, obviously. And so they had a big German polka band playing. People were dancing. We had a lot of non-alcoholic vendors, and they had long games, food, mustard flights.
I love that.
I mean, it was like what we wanted to create was a true festival vibe,
Cool.
And for me, not just tasting non-alcoholic events, but like, let's hang out. Like, let's party. And so that's, I missed it because I wasn't there, but I heard that's what happened. So, yeah.
Yeah, I feel like part of watching from from her side go through this journey is just like having things to do, right? It's like I feel just from my personal experience, observing, that seems to be like the hardest thing to do.
It is
one of the biggest challenges. Outside of letting it go, but then like trying to like normalize your life and feel like, oh, is there something that I'm missing?
Yes.
Right. Is that like that group kind of, whatever it is. So I love that there's more and more of these events that people can kind of, look forward to and be a part of.
Yeah. Because
So
the FOMO is real. Like
Yeah.
it's very real. I mean, even regardless of how much sobriety you have, when you see people, like you still want to be included. And that's why, I love that you guys made a point of like the non-alcoholic drinks, like from the beginning, not just now, because that's the worst feeling is having water or Diet Coke,
Right.
and I love like you brought up the non-alcoholic drinks too, and it's really, really important for the younger generation too, when they're going out and like having a fancy drink in your hand. That's a big deal for people's like you don't want to feel
Just put
othered.
it in a glass.
Put
That
it
looks
in a glass.
cool.
Seriously.
yeah.
Literally.
I know.
I mean, but just like seeing Liquid Death and like the success
know,
that they've
right?
had, and it's
Totally.
like
So
it's
good.
insane that and the whole premise is that it's I'm sure it's delicious. I've had a bunch. They're great, right? The lime one that we had at her wedding, at her friend's wedding,
Yeah.
which was awesome.
Yeah.
Like that because she was practicing sobriety.
She did. She's so sweet. Her and her husband now decided to stop drinking, and they still had alcohol at their wedding, but they had a lot of like they had a specific
And
any
options.
cocktail.
Yeah.
Ones that she like curated like from Amazon because the event person like didn't have it.
Okay.
But she's like, I really love this flavor of liquid death. And I just like I didn't stop drinking that all night.
Yeah.
And I love that like there is this like response to like, hey, it's about kind of like I don't know. It's kind of like we're at that weird point where it's like fitting in is still important, but hopefully at one point in time it won't be, right?
know.
It's like I don't like no, I wouldn't be caught dead with a bottle of beer in my hand, right?
Right.
Like that'll happen at some point, but even the movement now of like let's make the cans look really cool so that they just like feel part of it.
Right.
And I know a lot of restaurants like make it a point to like we pour our kombucha into a wine glass to let people toast and not feel like they have some obnoxious juice box in their hand while the table is, toasting. So
people just want to feel included. And if I order a cocktail and you're super excited about telling me about it, but then my friend doesn't drink and you're just like, oh, here's like Coca-Cola, Sprite.
Yes.
Then you're just making them feel even more excluded.
Yeah, and that's how they're starting their experience of like their whole evening of like their night out as well.
It's
like,
been a constant.
Always.
Like you can gouge me with any beverages. I'll buy a $13 mocktail.
I
Just
know.
give me a chance.
I know, right?
Yeah, I had a friend, earlier in my life he chose just not to drink because he just didn't enjoy it. And he really made it a point to me, and I'll never forget this, that when he's at a restaurant, he always has to be feeling like they make the serve. So I talk about this with my team. They'll say, "Oh, what would you like?" And someone will say, "I'll have this beer," and the next person's like, "I'll have this cocktail," and the person goes, "I'm just having water," and the server will say, "Just water for you, sir." Right? Like the just needed to be there as like an indication that it's like you're not at that level.
Mm-hmm.
And he made it a point always. He's like, every time the server's always like, just water for you. And it's like, why is it just water? It's the greatest thing that ever happened. And I'm just like, no, it's a good point. And it's a great point that we should never make someone feel like that, right? Like, because at the end of the day, it's like my business is hospitality and I want everyone leaving here to feel amazing, right? And so, no one should ever feel like they just, oh, it's just soda water for me, right? Like, and you shouldn't feel bad about that. So changing the dialogue is important.
Yeah.
So.
With changing the dialogue and you being sober for over 7.5 years, what if you're hanging out with people that do drink? How are you navigating that? And I just think that really early on, it's kind of hard to talk to people about not drinking, and people make it weird. And you have to be really confident in yourself to be able to like come back to them. But for people who aren't, what are ways that they can either navigate relationships or conversations?
Yeah. So I did not hang out with the people I used to hang out with in the beginning. I just didn't want to. I was not interested in being around alcohol. So I personally feel like if that makes you feel uncomfortable for any reason, say no. Just say no. Like if they're truly your friends, and they know you're not drinking and you need some space, then they'll come back, or you guys will reconnect.
Right.
Because when they kind of say like change your playgrounds, change this and that, and it's for me that was true. Like even like the mom friends I have, I don't still talk to them. I have different interests now, and I love like meeting people in sobriety. Like they're cooler. Like I'm not cooler, but like they have like all these different interests, and so like the conversations are like super interesting. So, but it's really just to have your sobriety like first and foremost, and to try not to think about like what other people are feeling or not. I remember Thanksgiving, I was like 6 months at least in, and I didn't want to go to Thanksgiving because I was having a moment, and I was like, I'm not going. And my husband said, "For real?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm not going." So I didn't go, and it's fine.
That can be so hard for people Thanksgiving because
all the holidays,
all of the holidays, right?
Yes.
New Year's Eve is especially.
You're drinking to celebrate, and then depending on your family relationships, you're probably drinking to like, like,
because of the family aspect.
because of the family.
Yeah, New Year's Eve is probably easier.
It's like, how are you using it?
So
Oh, these
New
like
Year's.
as an escape. Like
Yeah, really.
it is kind of
Okay.
it is an escape,
Yeah.
And so me personally, like going back to your question about like how do I deal with like people around with their drinking, I can be around them for a little while and then I'm ready to go home.
Yeah.
And so we were just chatting yesterday with some friends about being kind of like a 2-hour mark or whatever it is, like early exit plan. And I love
love
going
that.
home early.
I love that too. I love that you say that because I think that oh my gosh, just thinking about the whole year, it's been a roller coaster, but I used to be a night person. Now
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
like not a morning person, but not a night person.
Right.
Oh, don't even get called out. But it was to the point where I would still try to go out, which I don't do anymore. I don't even try. But when I would feel myself like having anxiety, and I'm
Yes.
like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah.
And then I felt bad for not wanting to be here. And then I would go out with friends, and I felt like almost like I'm killing the party or killing the
Yes.
vibe because I want to leave. But then you get to a point where you're like,
Yes,
I can leave whenever I want.
totally. Yes.
So
But-
I think
and
that's important for people.
it
to
is really
remember.
important. And like, I even left like a Pink concert in the middle of the concert because I was with friends that were drinking. These are like some of my best girlfriends, but sobriety is just hard. Like the emotions, like you think that the emotions, or you think you're going to be okay sooner than it happens. Like it just takes a little while to like really feel, at least for me, to feel confident in my own skin.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was bringing this vibe down of this concert, so I left. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't mad, but I had this like fight or flight, like I need to get out of here,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
because they said they were gonna go get a drink and they all came back with water, and I was like, no,
Yeah.
bye bye,
I gotta go.
I'm leaving now.
I have a personal question.
Bring it.
So it's one of our someone on our team has been sober for it's like 2+ years, and I cannot tell you how proud I am of this person. And I think that there's a part of me sometimes that I feel like when I'm like enjoying myself here, and I the moment I see this person, I immediately feel, I feel guilty.
Oh, for sure.
I feel guilty looking at this person. I'm just like, I'm like, I just don't even want to
I know.
try not to look. I'm just like, yeah, because like I'm so proud of where this person has gone,
Yeah.
and I want to continue to encourage this person, and I kind of want to ask you, I guess, like, what are some ways that if you know someone that's dealing with this, right? Because it's really two questions. I'm sure. I assume the first one is obvious, maybe, but is it still a challenge? Like you're 7.5 years
Yeah.
in, is it still something that's really difficult, or has it gotten easier?
Oh yeah,
Okay.
it's gotten a lot easier, and I really prefer I'm at a point where I want my friends to drink, definitely. But I still, when I go on vacation, and we like to vacation in all inclusive places, even though we don't drink. We like to like scope out like places that have mixologists where there's like really cool, like, because I like the vibe of like just not having to plan anything
Right.
and just like relaxing. But I know what my triggers are, and I know when I'm like on a beach somewhere that I'm gonna think that alcohol looks more appealing to me than when I'm home. But it's okay because I'm aware of that, and it's like it's thoughts and it's feelings, and it's okay. Like I can have them; they pass through me. I don't act on them.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I would say the one part to your question, like when you're with friends that are not drinking, to have non-alcoholic options always, that will make them feel so like included.
Yeah.
Like even to just go, because now you can buy them anywhere. But like
Right.
if you had friends coming over and like you actually like had gone to the store and picked up a 6-pack of whatever non-alcoholic, they're gonna be like, no way. You
Right.
know, it's like bringing me flowers.
Yeah.
It's great. It's a really nice gesture.
I love that. Yeah, I think it's just something I always think about when I'm with this person, and obviously I live with Anjoleen,
Yeah.
and so I've gotten used to the, but I guess for some reason I look at what you're doing as like more of like a personal choice challenge, right? It wasn't like a
Right.
Yeah. Which is crazy because there were a lot of moments where I was like cringe thinking
Yeah.
about things that I've done. And I think that with that, like maybe I didn't have like a big rock bottom point where people, I like hurt people, but there were definitely moments where, and I think a lot of people not a lot of people, but I feel like if you drink regularly, there are definitely moments that you may or may not remember that aren't safe
Yeah.
or
yeah.
healthy. So maybe in your mind, it doesn't seem as bad as
Yeah.
it really is.
Yeah, I mean the for me, even like the denial was huge,
Yeah.
because it's always I didn't think it was as bad as it was, and but
Yeah.
for me personally, but I again going back to like just being able to have the conversations when I got sober, people were not talking about it. I mean, it was such like you were like it was like the scarlet letter, like if you're an alcoholic or whatever I'm comfortable with that term personally. But I just was so afraid of people to find out, and I'm not. I mean, obviously, I'm not afraid anymore.
Right.
Obviously,
Yeah.
we've crossed that hump. But but just to have us, just that we can talk is it's so much has shifted, like with social media now, and just all the different
Yeah.
outlets. I mean, it's great.
And also like understanding that if like in my case, I have not drank for a year, but before that I was drinking since I was like 18 because in Guam, the drinking age was 18. So it's like 12 years of alcohol. And what's crazy is that like I feel that I've come so far, but just keeping it in mind wherever you are in your stage that 1 year compared to 12 years,
Right.
that it's okay if I'm still figuring things out because that's a long time to
yeah.
have like something in your life that has like this impact, whether it's big or small. So it's like 1 year is not going to solve everything, right? It's not
Exactly.
going to fix
Exactly.
everything, but just
I
like
love that.
keeping that in mind of like,
Yeah,
You
and,
know.
and it's always just
it's a
like
process.
You took the word of my mouth. Yeah, it's always it's a process. It's like it's just like a shifting, and it's always just like a work in progress.
I love that. Yeah. If there was someone out there that was like interested, maybe not to give it up entirely, but they were like, you know what, I want to make mindful decisions. What are some conscious things that they can ask themselves, some questions that they can ask themselves,
Yeah,
or steps they can make?
yeah. I would definitely. I think it's great for people to honestly like kind of have people look at calories. Like if you're kind of curious about your diet, like seriously write down how many drinks you're having and just kind of look at it. Because. Just to kind of like just jot it down on anything and just take a look at it. And also when you're having a drink, think about why you're having the drink. For me, it was always to like decompress after work. Like,
Right.
because my job is like, go, 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 and I was like, I didn't take my coat off before I would get a glass of wine. I
Right.
literally like was pouring a glass. I mean, that was how I relaxed. And I didn't really know how to relax otherwise, But I would say just to be mindful to like when you're out also in between drinks, maybe have a water in between or have one of these other non-alcoholic drinks in between. That's what my husband was saying happened at Oktoberfest. There were a lot of people there that weren't necessarily like completely sober, but that were just like, I could take these to the beach. Yeah, you can totally take them to the beach. And they're fun,
Right.
So,
that.
yeah.
Do you find that there's people going to the events, or have you met anybody that just doesn't drink in general, and not necessarily because they choose to? I don't know if that sounds
Yeah.
weird, but just like, oh no, I just never drink. That's
Yes.
just like not me.
Yeah. So in like religious reasons and just they don't like it for whatever reason. And so it's kind of cool too that this, it is a movement. It's definitely a movement, but it's kind of cool on another way because it's another way for people to socialize that maybe like didn't have, because when you're in sober spaces, people like will chat you up. Like they're just like, they're just kind of more easy or more willing, or it's going to happen to say, hey, I'm going to give you a call later, and then actually call you. Like, yeah, I know.
Yeah, they remembered.
Yeah. But you can tell who you like, who you want to hang out with. And
Right.
like, you can just like tell if you like want to hang out with that person again. And then it's just kind of interesting because people in sobriety will like actually follow through with it.
I love that.
That is funny. I do have a question about motherhood and like being a parent. I think that when I was growing up, my dad was definitely an alcoholic, but great father besides that. And then my mom's family didn't really drink, but never taught literally anything about it. Just that, don't do it.
Yeah.
Like literally the words of like, don't drink,
Yeah.
don't drink and drive. What are some ways? I know you said that your daughter was aware. What are some ways that you're educating your children about?
Yeah.
sobriety?
So when I decided to get help, I decided I was going to, like, in our home, we were going to 100% talk about it. So we are like an open book. Like, we've been an open book from day one. And so, and I do know that, like, my daughter does drink now. She didn't drink for a while, but, you know, she's at college now, so I know she, like, drinks a little bit. And I just think, like, just having the open discussions is, like, just so important. And I was thinking, too, like, you know, I'm just so grateful I was able to get sober while she was, you know, when I did, so that when she left us, it's normal for her to be raised in a house without alcohol, 100%. And so that our celebrations do not involve alcohol, but they're still really, really fun. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, like, when we were talking about, like, changing what we call normal, you know, it doesn't, the things don't have to have alcohol, even though we always had them and we're ingrained that they should, you know. And that was hard for me personally, because I didn't know how I would do anything without, because we always had it, every barbecue, every like birthday celebration. And so, yeah, just being really honest and open.
Yeah, I love that. Is that starting at a certain age, like maybe in the teens, or is it as early as like?
I think as early as you can,
Yeah.
to have honest conversations, because especially like with the kids with their phones and everything. I mean, they're seeing whatever they want to.
Right.
And so I think it's better to just, like, hit it head on and talk about it.
Yeah, I always think that's interesting, because you travel to, you know, like, I feel like Europe is the best example, and there are people that are, like, their kids can, like, enjoy a glass of wine,
Right.
But I think what I've seen is, like, the biggest difference is, like, some of my European friends are not just, like, drinking to get wasted. They're just, like, it's, like, a little bit more casual,
Yes.
and less aggressive. And I feel that if you're allowed to, like, not that, like, people should have their kids have a glass of wine with them,
Yeah.
but just, like, the shame behind it.
Yes.
Where it's like, I caught you drinking.
Right.
How dare you?
Right.
And then it's like,
Yes.
and then it's something you do in spite of somebody, or
Yeah,
rebel.
kids will always want to do things they can't
Oh,
do,
yeah.
right?
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
so when you take it away and you say this is forbidden, it almost makes it, it's like it's like watching kids smoke cigarettes.
Yeah.
You know, it's like it looks so ridiculous,
Yeah.
you know, as an adult. But I remember when I was a kid and I was like sneaking smokes away
Yes.
from my old man, and like, you know, it's just
Yes.
like, well, I was like, I don't know. And the whole culture, I think we just need to change the dialogue on how we're talking to kids about this stuff, because
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of change we need to make, but
or just talking to kids.
It just talking to kids,
Just,
you
like,
know,
about anything.
Yeah, and like
Right.
even like
Really?
with my personal children, you know, I'm just straight up, like, you know, I had an addiction problem. You know,
Yeah.
I became addicted to alcohol, and again, there was no trauma. It's just because I drank too much. It's
Yeah.
like an insidious thing that if you continue to drink it, you're gonna have a problem with it.
Yeah.
And so, I just let my kids know, you are at higher risk for developing a problem. So, you know, please be mindful.
Yeah.
If you choose to drink, I hope you're not going to drink, but you know,
talking to your daughter at college, do you feel like the culture in college is starting to shift a little bit
Yes.
from like the
Yes, I
whole
do.
frat sorority
Yeah.
getting wasted thing?
Well, she's at Loyola, so there's not a whole lot of
Okay.
like, but you know, the
Still, right.
mixers from the get go were definitely alcohol, but you know,
Yeah.
that's what it is.
I know, it's so crazy. My niece is 16 years old, and she's just such a good person, and she doesn't drink. I highly doubt it. And it's one of those things where I was like, I was drinking when I was 16.
Yeah, most people were.
And I'm
Right.
like, it's just so crazy to me. And something else that I think about with not drinking and sobriety is that, and I want people to know, is that, like, you don't need to have a problem to choose to steer your life.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of people think it's like, oh, you quit because you have a problem, or you quit because you can't handle yourself,
Right.
or whatever. And it's like, no, it's because I love myself.
Yes.
And I want to make decisions that are smart for me to live a more fulfilling life. And if I don't think like the effects of alcohol are beneficial to me, then that's the choice I'm going to make.
Right.
Which is like just so crazy. I didn't know that I could do that.
Right.
Yeah, maybe that's like the change and shift in dialogue is like, it's not, this is why you don't do something. This is why you do, why you
Yes.
stay away from it.
Exactly.
You know? And I love that. So if there was something that you like wanted to share with listeners, I guess, what is like the focus of your message? Is it?
My focus is that you cannot do it alone. So
Okay.
people that are truly, that need to be sober, they have to find community. And so my biggest thing is to find your people. Like you have to find people that you feel comfortable with. They don't have to be your best friends, but like you have to find other people in recovery or in sobriety, which whatever your terminology is, that you can talk about, because people that are not and that can drink or that do drink, it's very different. Like even my husband, you know, we have a fantastic relationship and he has a medical background. He doesn't get it. Like
Yeah.
he does not get it. And that's okay. He's not ever going to get it. Like you know, so you have to have people that you can have that common dialogue with, because it's hard. It's just hard.
And what is like the first step you feel like someone, what is like the easiest step someone could make? Is it going online, and is there a specific place?
Yeah, so if you can get yourself into a recovery meeting, that is for people that like, you know, again, truly need to be sober, get yourself into a recovery meeting or into like a recovery community. There's so many online, but you miss out on so much of the nuances and like being with you guys would be very different than if I was at home on my camera,
Right.
you know? And so then you need to feel that in sobriety. You need to feel, because there's so much early emotions that like other people have your back. And so that's what we like emphasize with Chicago AF. And, you know, that's what I learned in AA. And then I wanted to expand that out I wanted to take some of those principles and just expand it out so that other people could feel that as well.
Love that.
I love that I also love that it's positive, because I think that sometimes these, the things around like alcohol-free or sobriety or like recovering it's very intense, and I think it can be a lot for people when they
Yeah.
hear other people's stories, and it's like, this isn't for me.
Totally.
I'm not that bad.
Yeah, totally.
This is too much. But it's like maybe the community, if they're not there if they're not at that point, like Chicago AF and Brave are perfect for people who are a little bit of like, I just choose not to,
Yep.
and I'm excited, and
Yep.
I'm at the point where I want to like meet more people.
love that.
Exactly. And that's like with Chicago AF too. Like I always encourage people to have more support. So be in something else too, because we like do one meeting a month one meeting a week and one event a month.
I love that.
But and I try to keep the topics light and fun and trendy, and like, you know, we're gonna really talk about stuff, but we're gonna have fun and talk about it. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like
What's an example of like a topic?
even less. Well, we did creativity recently, which was a fantastic meeting because it was all like everyone coming out of the woodworks that like recently started like playing guitar again, or they got into their art again, or they were
that.
violin and stand-up comedy. It's like
I love that.
I know.
you?
I know. I was like, what is going on with this meeting?
That one came out of left field for
I
me.
know, right?
I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
I can only imagine the amount of stories on both sides, you
Big.
know,
Oh, yeah.
that you've heard. And I feel like it'd be great. I mean, I don't know. I mean, just like as an outsider from this, I feel like it would be so great to like have a place. Maybe it's like somewhere that lives online where there's an open forum for people to share their stories and talk about, you know, the worst of their times, because sometimes I feel like people connect on that too, right?
Yes, they do.
And it's a reminder, not always in a bad way, that like, you know, it's hard to hear that because it reminds me of my days, but also it's like your compass guide, right? It's like, I remember that and I don't ever want to be there again. And so it's like it can be used in a powerful way to uplift people, and then to hear, you know, everyone loves a success story, right?
Yeah.
And I think maybe just like I wish there was something like that where, and maybe there is, and I obviously just don't know, but
Yeah,
like a
yeah.
place where people can like share these stories of like, hey, I'm 10 years sober and look at what I've, where I'm at now, because I think people need to like hold on to both of those
Yes.
energies, right? It's like the one to be like scaring them, like, I don't want to be back there again. And then the one that's like, well, this is my ambition in my life and I want to drive towards
Yes.
success.
Yeah.
But it's really cool to see, and I can only imagine how many incredible people you've met and their journeys and their stories along the way,
Yeah.
over the last few years of running these programs. And
Yeah, I
meetings.
never in my wildest dreams thought I would be like sitting here and meeting these people that all the common thread that we have is sobriety. I mean, I'm talking like internationally.
Right.
One of my girlfriends that I had met online had a party in New York City, a launch party of her magazine, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna go,
Yeah.
So, I mean, but it's like that, and then it's just like meeting all of these different connections. Like I couldn't find it in Arlington Heights. I'm not a city girl. I love that Chicago AF is like, obviously, you know
Yeah.
that. Thank you. But like, brings me down here so that I can like, help create events and help people like feel more comfortable and provide opportunities to meet and greet. But
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like one of those amazing things that, everyone kind of surrounds the word pandemic with all of the negativity, but I think there's been a lot of incredible positive changes from it. And I think you guys were talking about it earlier, but like even just like people were at home, right?
Yes.
And so, for one, it's scary because I'm sure some people were like dealing with like the fact that like, wow, this is just readily available. Like I don't need to go in the office. I could have a glass of wine right now at 11 o'clock and no
Yeah.
one's going to know.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm sure maybe it helped in some cases where they're just like, well, I'm just doing this by myself. So what's the point? Right. And then maybe people just being with themselves a little bit more,
Yeah.
gave time and opportunity for people to like really reflect
I think so,
internally
too.
and be like, what the hell's going on? What am I doing? Right. And
I
so
totally think
you've had all these
so.
like career pivot changes over the
Yes.
last like 2 years. And, but it's so cool to see. And now you're seeing the impact on, it was like, restaurants and businesses were like, we got to get booze out. We got to get cocktails to go. And then now it's like, all of a sudden it's like, well, if you don't have a non-alcoholic cocktail program, it's like, you're crazy to not
I know.
have that.
I'm like, what's your problem?
Yeah. And so it's amazing to see all the change, and I'm super excited to see, I'm sure we'd love to join at an event or
Please.
something
Yeah,
soon,
please.
see what's going on. But we do have a little quick game.
Okay, good. I love games.
And then we'll dive into sharing some information for listeners to learn
Sure.
more about both of your incredible programs. But we'll say a word, okay? And then you just share the first thing that comes to mind. There's no pressure here. There's no right or wrong answer. There is $1 million you can win. Just kidding. So here we go.
Just kidding. You have to say that.
First word is inspiration.
Sobriety.
I love that. Support,
Mike.
wellness, we can pass that
The
one.
pressure's on.
No, the pressure's so on.
I don't use the same word.
I feel like it. With wellness, it just to me is so much more than physical.
I love that.
I love that too.
Change.
These past couple years,
I love that. Fulfillment,
what I'm doing right now.
future,
Traveling.
brave.
Me.
I love that. That was amazing. We have a follow up here. It's one that we ask all of our guests here on the show, and because it's really the highlight and the reason we're doing this, right, is to highlight and give people the soapbox, incredible people that are doing incredible work, right, and just but I think like people forget that there is this journey and process along the way, right? And so that's what we're here for. If you could give your younger self some advice, what would that advice be?
just to not be so hard on myself and not try to be, it doesn't have to be perfect. Things don't, just put it out there. Like things.
I love that.
Yeah.
That is, that's a nail on the head for us.
Yeah.
We've been it's been a big focus of, at least personally for me, over the last couple of months is progress over perfection.
Yep.
And I feel like oftentimes, you know, all of us kind of get in our heads and we're like, wait, that's not ready yet. Or,
Right.
oh, I don't want to do it until I feel like, you know, and it's like, no, just do it.
Right.
Right. So, wow, shout out to Nike for that. Anyways.
Any businesses you admire, whether it's events, pop-ups that we can check out in Chicago that you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, all our local dry and bottle shops are phenomenal. So there's been Dician. I'm sorry, Christina, if I'm saying it wrong. But that's our local bottle shop. There's In Good Spirits, which is a sober space as well. Eli's Tea Bar is fabulous as well. And out in Naperville, we have Go Brewing as well. So it's just so cool that these spaces are popping up and that there's more coming too.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
Can I touch back real quick? Mike is your...
Yeah, he's my sponsor actually.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, and he's 80.
Oh my God.
Mm-hmm. He's 80.
I thought that was like assistant director. I was like, what?
No,
80?
he's my he's my sponsor, and
80 years old.
and so it's kind of cool because men and women don't typically work together. But I was really close. I was really scared and sad when I had to get sober. Like, just really, it's not good.
That's cool.
And I was really close with my grandfather, and I know that that's why I was okay with like
I love that.
opening up just a little bit.
That's amazing. Shout out to Mike.
Yep, shout out.
Well, we have a little gift here. It's on the way here.
Oh, thank you.
Do you want to share about
Yes.
this?
We'd also love to give our sponsor, Cocatel Collective, a shout out. They provided us with a beverage for you to take home, which is a
Thank
something
you.
and nothing.
Oh, I
This
love
is
it.
the predominantly cucumber. There's a little bit of mint and lemon in there, and it's a premium soda. So they do natural juices, extracts, botanicals.
Cool.
Super delicious.
Thank you.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Can we touch on just really quick, where can people learn more about you and the work that you're doing?
Definitely. So Chicago AF is my nonprofit, and that's the community in Chicago, and that's at chicagoafcommunity.com. You can also find us on Instagram at chicagoafcommunity. And then Brave is my adventure and boutique-styled coaching practice, and that is also at braverecoverycoaching.com.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining
Thank
us and
you.
sharing your time.
Thanks for having
Ladies
me.
and gentlemen, Carrie May.